Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, services month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Innovation Podcast, your source for all things innovation. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have John Johnston on the line, and he's CEO and co-founder over at Edgewood Analytics and Edgeworth Economics. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great here, Adam.
So excited to get into today's topic. We're going to talk about how you're helping companies harness their data and some things that they may be missing. But before we get into that, just to get a little bit further into the company, tell us a little bit more about Edgeworth Analytics and Edgeworth Economics, please.
Well, we're 2 companies basically that one focuses on sort of data in litigation and the other focuses on data in sort of consulting for businesses that are, just trying to understand their data better. So group of PhD economists, statisticians, and basically a lot of us are teachers, both former professors. And so we basically are all about how do you teach people to think about and understand their data simply and practically.
That's awesome. And I think it's a good lead into today's topic because what you're really doing is helping. I mean, we're in a new world of data. Like this is going to be new for many, especially for, certain companies that are legacy companies, been around for a long time, have all this data, don't know what to do with it. Then there's your newer companies that are thinking about like what they know the importance of data maybe, and they're thinking about how do they get started right. So where do you want to start this topic? Because this is a big deal.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, let's start with just the basics. I mean, people understand that they have data, they understand that data can be powerful, but they often don't even know where to start because data doesn't come ready to use. The data that gets collected in your everyday business is not necessarily in a format that will answer the questions you want to. So a really key part of sort of anything with data analysis is framing the question properly. What is it that you want to know about your data? What is it that you want to learn about? How do you think about the question first? Then we can think about, well, what data do you have to answer it?
Can you give an example of that? The reason I say that is because some people are listening to this right now, and what they're saying, we can use a basic one, doesn't have to be complicated, but there's some people listening and they're like, oh, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me because they maybe don't even have that grasp of like the importance of data in general. So especially if they've never used it, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the breadth of questions are sort of, enormous. But I mean, we recently did a project for one organization that had a retail shop as a part of their larger museum, actually. And they were trying to figure out what their inventory levels should be appropriately. And then when COVID hit, everything kind of went a little bit crazy with respect to that. And so trying to help people just understand, okay, what can you learn about which products were selling most effectively, which products weren't, those kind of things. We've also had a ton of inquiries about just COVID in general because people are trying to figure out what do I do with my workforce? What are the risks of people getting sick and things like that? So, when you start to think about anything with respect to your business, pretty much there is probably a data-oriented question lurking under the surface. That doesn't mean you always immediately realize that without thinking about it.
It makes a lot of sense. And where do you find, and I know you work with, a lot of different types of companies, and so I know this is going to change from company to company, size of company, right, founder, how long they've been around. I know there's a lot of variables here, but I also do know that, the more people you work with, the more themes tend to arise. Where do you find people kind of miss the boat, like often in terms of their data?
Well, I think, first of all, they don't realize that you can't let the perfect be the enemy of good enough, right? There are certain things you need to sort of do with data where, you may not have exactly the data set you want, but you can still learn something from the data by looking at it, by thinking about it, by understanding. The analyses can more be thought of in terms of, well, can you provide some rigor and some direction as necessarily always having a pristine answer that's absolutely perfect. So sort of try to get people to understand that you don't have to be a master statistician to think like a data person, but what you do want to do is sort of take key elements of your business and see how you can put them to the test with data that might help you make better decisions.
Yeah, and let's go a little bit further down this decision path, because I feel like some business owners are really good on the sales side of things, so they're like, that's where they spend the majority of their time in terms of looking at data, looking at lead flow, other metrics, that those types of metrics and things that be more profitable. Some are let's say a little bit better on the financial side, where they're looking at revenue and other things. Some are good both. So if you had to kind of focus on which one? Like, there's some people listening right now, like they're probably shy on multiple of those. What would be like that low-hanging fruit, that low-hanging, we get it and we understand that you're not probably going to stop your entire business today to start, after listening to one podcast on data, even though we've been nagging you. I'm saying we, right? But, somebody's been nagging you, or it's been nagging you figuratively, in the back of your mind that you need to get this, a control on this. So what's that low-hanging fruit that can give somebody some reprieve today?
Look, I always sort of start with financials and sort of the basics of any company, because companies are in existence to sort of turn a profit, and they often think maybe the beginning point is use data as the snapshot. It's not always about all of these patterns. Sometimes it's just essentially like a picture. Here's where we are at this point in time. Am I really as familiar with my business today as I think I am, especially in an environment like we are in the current economic environment where things are changing so rapidly? So I was going to say, look, the lowest lying fruit is just simply look at some basic financials. Let's just look at sort of a picture of the various key elements of your company from a data perspective, create a data portrait basically, and sort of see what that means. And does that square with your intuition about your business, or are there things to explore further? That's always a really easy starting point and usually leads to some interesting insights.
Let's talk a little bit more about systems. So just in general, because the other thing I find is that, people maybe don't have the right systems in place to capture the type of data that's going to matter to them. And sometimes these are easy fixes, by the way. So I remember, so early in our career, I'm starting this business as a media company, we were maybe 4 years in. I don't think we had Google Analytics started for the first 6 to 8 months or something like that, which is ridiculous. It takes 5 minutes, and we totally missed the boat on that. Just being honest. So again, I'm not picking on the audience. I'm picking on me. Talk a little bit about systems and data collection for us.
Right. Well, I think the key is if you're going to think about sort of systematic data collection, you really, again, gets back to the basics. What is the questions you're trying to answer? So once you kind of know and you sort of have embedded in your business sort of a prospective looking forward, here's the kind of data I need, that's when you can sort of set up a system that works. I mean, what I often find when I sort of facilitate education classes for companies is that once you get various parts of your business speaking to each other, oftentimes the data sets exist in the ordinary course of business. You just didn't realize you had them. So it's kind of two things. It's sort of figuring out how do you mine the existing stock of data, and then really looking forward with sort of a forward-looking vision, I really care about, for example, in your example, what are my web analytics going to tell me? Well, Google Analytics is a great place to go for that. But there are other things. If you have other HR questions, if you have other financial questions, there's other types of systems that can be put in place. They don't necessarily have to be fancy dashboards and sort of really expensive technology investments, but it's just about being forward thinking about it enough to understand what is it you really want to get at.
That's well said. So final question here. If somebody, it's a two-part question, John. If somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more and they want to connect with you and your team, first off, what's the right type of company, whether it's size, whether it's industry, whether it's niche, or just in general, what's the right types of company that are typically a good fit to work with you and your team? And second part, what's the best way for them to follow up?
So what's kind of interesting about our consulting business is we actually do serve quite a wide range of different companies with different data needs. We have some Fortune 100 companies that are large. They have different data problems, but we also focus on small businesses. And we have something called our Data Blueprint, which is just a program that's sort of like an entry-level program where someone can they have a data question. They just want to spend a few hours just talking to someone about their data problem. we sort of do that where we try to give some of those practical guidance. And so if you want to find out about that or any other services we offer, the best place to go is edgeworthanalytics.com, our website, and you can reach us through there.
Fantastic. Well, John, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background, all the great stuff you're doing over at Edgeworth Economics and Edgeworth Analytics. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Innovation, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And John, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks. Great talking to you.